Hello and welcome back. In this lecture, we're going to learn about how to create and assign app protection policies. To begin with that, you can click on go to Client Apps and then App Protection Policies. This is where you're going to actually create the policies. If at all you have any policies, it's going to load up, but we don't have any of the policies. Let's click on Create Policy, and you have the three different options actually in the platform. One would be the iOS and Android and Windows 10 specific, and then you're gonna actually selecting that specific applications or some kind of specific settings. Before we actually begin, we need to understand about as we talked earlier also mobile application management or app protection or whatever you call it. In this case, these policies are gonna protect the applications, whether the devices are gonna uh, managed with Intune or without manage. That means whether you enroll or not, you can also configure here the specific settings. Let's give it here as the first policy. Let's take it as iOS. I'm going to give as a name as iOS, and then let's go further by configuring specific applications. In these applications, let's take one of the application from the iOS. Most common would be Outlook application, and if you selected Outlook application, you would be actually giving more specific settings here, how you're going to actually protect, what kind of protection you're going to apply on that specific application. Let's take data protection. This is a specific setting where how you want to protect the data within that application. Let's say Outlook has configured with some of the corporate emails. Now what happens if that Outlook has synced with iCloud? It's gonna pass that entire information to Apple's iCloud data center. If you want to block it, you would be normally setting up here a policy that I don't want to backup to iCloud or Intune or iTunes. I'm sorry, it should be iTunes. So you want to block to the iTunes. That's nothing but your cloud on your local storage. If you want to block, you can block that specific settings. So these are the settings. This kind of settings can be configured. Now also you can send the more information, like you can configure here send organization data to other apps. That means, for example, you open the Outlook and you copied some text from the Outlook and you want to paste that to maybe a Gmail. So Gmail is a personal profile, because Google Mail or Gmail is application, is not corporate owned application maybe. So that means the user is trying to breach the data or is gonna send that important critical company data to somewhere else. If you want to protect that, what you can do is under send organization data to, you can set it as policy managed application. That means from Outlook to Word can be possible. Word, if the Word is managed by your corporate profile, then it's allowed. But if the user is trying to copy either from Word or from Excel or from Outlook to Gmail or some other applications which are personal application, in this case it's going to block it. That's what the configuration means for policy managed apps. And what happens is if it chooses all apps, it's going to allow everywhere. So there's no restrictions, like you have the default settings like without the Intune. Also you can the way it works, the similar fashion it's going to work. But in our case we don't want that. We wanted a more specific to only apply or the copy paste or whatever the content is trying to copy or share within that corporate isolated profile. We don't want to share it within our personal profile. That's what we wanted to do it. Now coming back to the selection for the exemption. So here you can select some of the application. For example, there could be Outlook open and there is a phone number given, but you can't maybe remember that phone number. Instead you want to just copy it and you want to paste it to just the numbers. So you just wanted to paste it on a telephone number just for the dialing purpose. So if you want that kind of a facility, definitely you need to give some kind of exception. So these are the exceptions which are given here. If you can see here, tel as stands for the telephone, and teleprompt, all Skype, all these are the exceptions which are given by Microsoft. These are the exempted applications, and coming from the receiving data from other applications. So we told, inbound or outbound, whatever you may think, but we have taken first example as Outlook to Gmail. Now from the Gmail to Outlook, do you want to allow that kind of reverse receive the applications data? If so, you can say that, hey, I want to allow, for example, some of the applications, a simple text or simple PowerShell script, which or simple text which can crash your device because it has some kind of malicious code. If a user trying to copy from his Gmail to a corporate application, then you want to block that kind of information. In that situation, you would be choosing that only I wanted to allow for policy manager. I don't want allow anything to be copied from personal profile to corporate. Such a way you can configure and also save copies of the organization data allow, and allow users to save copies to selected services. You can say here cut copy, you want to restrict the applications, you can do that. Here policy managed applications, that's what we just talked about, very similar. These are the above, or what we have taken as example is just the copy paste kind of text what we have taken, but communicating between one app to another app, for example, from the Outlook to printing, or Outlook to whatever the attachment was shade that might be you are trying to open in another application. In that situation, these are the best examples to explain. But here we do have for the cut and copy specific policy also, and similarly you want to have any kind of restrictions, you can apply the restrictions. And the encryption, if you think about the encryption, so far we applied a lot of encryption policies, if you can remember, in the work profiles or the profiles what we have configured. But this encryption is, we are talking about the application encryption, not the device encryption. So the data which is going from the application also, if you want to encrypt, you can do that encryption. And coming back to the functionality, so you want to sync this with the native contacts, or do you want to printing with the organization data. These are the common applications or common settings that you can configure under this data protection. So this is more specific to the data. And if you can see here, restrict web content transfer from other applications, any app, or policy managed browser, so you can restrict it in that way also. Once you have done that, you can simply click OK. That's going to apply the policies. Now we're talking about the access. Earlier we were talking about the data. Now how do you open that application? Let's say if you're trying to open the Outlook, since it's a corporate managed application example, this application, does it prompt for a pin? If so, what kind of pin? It should be simple pin, or it's going to be complex pin, or you want to block the simple pin. If so, simply you can select that. And also the length of the pin, minimum maximum characters. With the, do you want to allow for the touch ID instead of the pin, or you want to override touch ID with the pin after some kind of timeouts? Or so do you want to allow the face ID instead of the pin for iOS specific? Because these are the settings which we are talking about iOS. So these were already written, but it doesn't need to be specifically mentioned. But these are iOS specific. But this specific setting is coming from iOS 11 plus configuration. And pin reset, number of days, all these kind of common settings can be configured. Now once we have these access specific settings, you can have the conditional launch. So now this specific application, how it's going to launch. So we talked about data, how to protect, how to access the specific application. Now do you want to while launching the application, do you want me to check any of the conditions? Let's say you want to let's say example, maximum pin attempts. So the user has tried more than 5 times example. So what he's going to do is, it will ask you to reset the pin. Or if the offline is the then it's almost a given 720 minutes, and that means the machine was not connected, or it was not checking that policy. Then you're gonna block the access, such kind of things. You can also configure here a minimum app version and the maximum, and sometimes also you can configure here the other configuration, for example, minimum OS version. This has been already given here, and if you want to block it, if the device is coming below 11, then you can simply block it. Or you can also configure here the jailbroken devices or rooted devices to be completely block access. Similarly, you can configure device models. For example, here all allowed with the device model. So here you can say that iPhone or whatever the device models you want to specifically configure, you can set that kind of configuration. If you don't want, you can simply delete these specific values. So these are the settings. So what we have talked is we talked about the 3 different settings for this protection policies relevant to iOS. So within the iOS, you have the data protection, access requirement, and conditional launching options. All these are the settings. Once you have configured, you can apply the specific settings. This specific setting I have not configured minimum application version number, so that's why it was error. So I just click that OK. Now this policy going to be created. Once you have all the settings, you can actually once again, if you want to review it, you can review it. Click create. That's going to create a policy relevant to iOS. That's how you're going to create for iOS specific application protection policies. Thank you for watching this. In the next lecture, we're going to learn about Android specific.